Next question comes from Dan Rodricks, and it goes to Mr. Van Hollen.
President Obama made history by becoming the first U.S. president in 90 years to visit Cuba, the culmination of an effort by his administration to improve relations with that nation. Would you support lifting the U.S. economic embargo against Cuba, or taking other steps to soften Cold War policies?
Yes, I would. I think the embargo has been an historic mistake, and I salute the president for his opening to Cuba. I'm pleased to have played a small role in this effort because my constituent, Alan Gross, had been held prisoner in Cuba for over 5 years, and we had to make sure we earned his release so that we could open that new chapter in relations with Cuba. I worked very hard and met with the president multiple times to secure that release and negotiate it. I was proud to be asked by the president to accompany Alan Gross's wife, Judy, on the airplane to Havana to bring Alan Gross home, and that was the icebreaker that allowed us to proceed with the change in relations. Look, the embargo has only served to strengthen the hand of the Castro brothers. It hasn't isolated the regime. They're doing just fine. It isolated the people of Cuba. And so the president is right to have changed a policy that obviously didn't work. I mean, the Castro brothers survived a whole series of American presidents. They were still there. The far better approach is to engage with the Cuban people, to open up more economic space. Hopefully that will open up more opportunities for pluralism and democracy in Cuba. Not going to happen overnight, but certainly the policies of the past did not achieve their results. So I applaud the president and was pleased to be part of that effort in a small way.
Thank you, Mr. Van Hollen. Ms. Edwards.
Thank you very much for the question. Prior to coming to the House of Representatives, I spent a decade at the ARCA Foundation, a small family foundation, and for about the last 25 years, and under my leadership of the ARCA Foundation, we actually supported people-to-people exchanges, education exchanges with Cuba, and organizations that were working to press the United States into ending the embargo and developing a diplomatic relationship with Cuba. And so my interest in this area and my work in this area goes back more than a decade and a half. And I do believe that the key to opening in Cuba and really making significant changes there is the ability for American citizens to travel back and forth, to exchange our cultures and our education. And I'm pleased to have been able to support those efforts before coming to Congress, and certainly now. I think that we are seeing a new day, and I think this next generation, both of Cubans and Cuban Americans, are seeing our approach to the island nation in a different way. And I think the president should be applauded for making this very bold step, but clearly there's action that Congress has to take affirmatively to lift the embargo, to allow us to travel freely to Cuba, and to allow us to do what I did and we did at the ARCA Foundation, which is to have the Cuban national baseball team come over to play the Orioles.
Thank you. Mr. Van Hollen, any rebuttal?
I was pleased to see that the president's visit continued to open up that space. You know, I had a chance to visit Cuba 3 times over the last 5 years as part of the effort to get Alan Gross out of prison. And each time I saw a growing optimism among the Cuban people that change was coming. And so it was great to see the excitement in Cuba in the president's last visit. And I do believe that, you know, the president is right, that as part of our efforts around the world, it's important that we not just talk to our friends. It's important that we engage with others who may want to do us harm. After all, Ronald Reagan called the Soviet Union the evil empire and then sat down with them. So I think the president has given us an important example, both with respect to the negotiations with Iran as well as the opening with Cuba, that smart diplomacy and smart foreign policy can include engagement and helping make change, not just through the use of force,
Thank you.
But by these other efforts.
Thank you very much, Mr. Van Hollen.